This video is to allow you to correct your homework for section 2.2.2. In the methods and meanings math notes, which is also in your toolkit, they remind you that integers are positive and negative whole numbers and zero. So if you think of integers as whole steps or no steps in either direction from zero, that will be helpful. So in other words, positive steps away from zero and negative steps to the left of zero. So the first thing they want you to do is write an expression to represent the sketches and then give the value of each sketch. So what we see in this sketch is we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positives, and we have 3 negatives. So we can write that in terms of as an expression as 5 plus negative 3. Now, to be honest, the expression would stop right there, but they then ask us to give the value of the sketch. And we know that a positive and a negative will create a zero pair. So that creates a zero pair. So does this. So does this. So that's how you're getting the value of 2. And then for the next one, it is on a number line. So you want to look at where it's starting, which is at 4. And then where are we going from 4? Well, we're going back in a negative direction 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 places. So we can think of that as adding a negative 6 or subtracting 6. Adding a negative and subtracting are interchangeable ideas. And where does it land? It lands at negative 2. Here you're going to do the same concept, count the number of positive, count the number of negative, and figure out what you end up with once you make your zero pairs, which is 0. Here you're starting at 4. Again, you're going to ask yourself, you're starting at negative 4. My mistake, and that is important. You're starting at negative 4, and then you're going to ask yourself, how many moves did I make in a positive direction? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Moved 7 units in a positive direction. And where did you land? Which, of course, is at positive 3. For 252, you're going to use the numbers 5, 6, and 7 and the operations of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and or division, so you don't have to use all 4, to create 3 different number expressions with 3 different values, and one needs to have a value of 37. Now remember, you're allowed to create your own, so they do not have to be the same as mine. But the one I did that had a value of 37 was 5 times 6, which of course would be 30, plus 7 would equal the 37. Again, I've used multiplication and addition, and I've used only these numbers. Another one I did was 5 plus 6 minus 7, which would be 11 minus 7, or 4. And then I did 6 minus 5 plus 7, giving us a value of 1. Here they want you to use a number line to show your work to find the value of this. So again, you can create a number line. And if you're starting at negative 5, and you're going in a positive direction, 3 and 25 hundredths, in other words, 3 and 1/4. So if you're going forward 3 and 1/4 places, question is, where do you land? So again, you may want to create a complete number line. What you end up finding is you land at negative 1 and 75 hundredths, or negative 1 and 3/4, because of course this is the same as 3 and 1/4. This is the same as negative 1 and 3/4. And then here you are going to want to do the same. Now, another way that I'm okay with you calculating the value here rather than showing a number line, but I still want to see the work, is that if numbers have opposite signs, like we have a negative 5 and a positive 3 and 25 hundredths, a positive 3 and 18 hundredths, a negative 7. You can subtract them because they have opposite signs, and then you can carry the sign on the answer of the value that is further from 0 on the number line. Now, what do I mean by that? So I have negative 5, which would be the same as negative 5 and 0 hundredths. And I have a positive 3 and 25 hundredths. Now, because they have opposite signs, I can ignore the signs for the moment and realize that I need to subtract them. So you could show the work in subtracting, have to borrow and so forth, and you get that 1 and 75 hundredths. But then you have to say to yourself at the end, is that answer going to be negative or positive? Well, 5, negative 5, is 5 units away from 0. 3 and 25 hundredths is less than that. So the 5, the negative on the 5, is carried to the answer. In other words, since they're opposite signs, we subtract, we could show the work, and we carry the sign of the number again that's further from 0 on the number line. The other way you can think of it is which has more pull, the 5 in a negative direction or the 3 and 25 hundredths in a positive direction. And the 5 in the negative direction has more pull, which is why it supplies the sign on the answer. Same thing here. You could do the 7 minus the 3 and 18 hundredths. Again, even though the 7 is negative and the 3 and 18 hundredths is positive, since they have opposite signs, we know we're going to subtract them. And you just subtract them as you would normally, the bigger minus the smaller. You get that 3 and 82 hundredths, but again, what's going to be the sign on the answer? Well, what has more pull, 3 and 18 hundredths or a negative 7? Negative 7 has more pull in its direction, so it supplies the sign to the answer. Here you have to rewrite them as decimals and decide if they're repeating or terminating. So again, the big key is to remember that a fraction bar means division. So 7 divided by 8, and you get 875 thousandths, which is certainly a terminating decimal. 2 divided by 9, 0.2 repeating, a repeating decimal, and so on. Now, the one thing that's unusual here is C, we have a lot of numbers that repeat. But again, that is a repeating decimal. For 255, Evan plans to put half of the money that his uncle gave him in his savings account, spend 1/5 of the money on bubblegum to share with his friends, and buy comic books with the money is left. What portion of money will he spend on comic books? So one way you can think of that is the money that he had is representing the whole amount of money that he had. He's putting half of it in a savings account. So now we're subtracting half of it. Now he's got half the money left that he did have. And then he's going to subtract or spend 1/5 of what's left from that. So if we do that, we can get a common denominator. 10 over 10 minus 5 over 10 minus 2 over 10 means that he has 3/10 of his money left. So what portion of the money would he spend on the comic books? 3/10. And then Evan uses some of his comic book money to buy a magazine for $4. If the uncle gave him 30, what fraction of the money did he spend on the magazine? So basically, what is 4 out of 30? And you can divide that and get a decimal, but since they wanted a fraction, it would be better for us to simply simplify that fraction, divide by 2, top and bottom, and get 2/15.